Hello, everyone. Oh, what a beautiful day. Happy Mother's Day to you all. Here we are, episode 39, Sunday morning coffee with Karen. So excited to be here. Super excited to be able to present to you today this journey of sensual motherhood that I've been on for the past 2.5 years, essentially. Well, really my whole life, let's be honest. So sensual motherhood is this concept that I created last year, about maybe about 2018, 2019, which is this idea of using your five senses and your intuition to mother from a place of extreme joy. So as pleasurable parenting and sensual motherhood, really activating inside of us the Aphrodite energy. A lot of people forget that Aphrodite is Cupid's mom. So she actually is a mother and absolutely is a huge important role in Greek mythology. And if you look at a lot of the goddesses, hi, thank you, Christina, happy Mother's Day. If you look at a lot of the goddesses, they are mothers, either to mortals or to other gods. Isis is the mother of Horus. You have this huge theme of motherhood. And we often just think about the service side of motherhood. And when we're only so focused on the service side of motherhood, the woman herself forgets how to receive the service. She forgets how to receive this divine inspiration, this divine connection that she has to everything. And it comes from all this data. We're constantly being bombarded with how are we supposed to be as a mom? Who are we supposed to be as a mom? We have the thousands and thousands and thousands of years of the patriarchy, and women are like the curse of Eve, and childbirth is painful because of this, and just all these crazy fear-based, masculine, aggressive traits or fears. It's all this fear around the power of women. Now, I'm not going into the whole feminism of or any of it or anything like that, except for to say that I am a feminist, as in I believe in the equality of men and women. And I have been my whole life. I have been a freedom fighter for as long as I can remember, always standing up for the little guy, always trying to understand, like, find that Libra energy. I have a Libra moon, so I have this balance that's constantly going on. Hey everyone, happy Mother's Day to everybody. And it's interesting because I have this Libra moon, but I also have this Leo sun, so super fire, and then a Aquarius rising. So this balance of water and fire. And if you guys remember, a couple of weeks ago I did the how to create steam in your life, and that's another part of the sensual motherhood. And so I figured on Mother's Day, and especially because there's so many new people in the group, in my sphere, in the realm of the dragon gateway of my my labyrinth that I have created here. And I really wanted you guys to see what I mean when I say that for me, leadership starts with being this divine parent to yourself and to your children. My entire journey started really because I was a kid when I had a kid. I was 19, well, barely 20. And I live in Utah, so it's really common for you to have a baby at 20 years old and be married. And it's a part of the rhetoric. Your boyfriend goes on his mission when you're 18, and you come back when he's 20, and you guys get married. And since you don't drink, it doesn't matter that you're not 21, and you have babies by the time you're 21 and 22, and you're doing all that. Like, that is what I was raised in. Even though I wasn't Mormon, all of my friends were, and like everyone that I knew, and it was just what the society was for me. So even though I'm a very non-traditional person, and my husband's a pretty non-traditional person, and we met at a Unitarian church, and we started dating, and we were little raver babies together, and trying all the ways of the Beatles, if we want to say it that way, and really just experimenting with life. And I had also been told my whole life that I couldn't have a baby, that I had this hip problem when I was born, that I would be able to get pregnant, but I wouldn't be able to actually have a baby. My hips would just like not open and expand. And on top of that as well, my mom is 36 years older than me and went through menopause a little bit early. So right around the time I started my period, my mom was going through menopause. And it honestly became too much for my dad to handle all the different hormones. I was hanging out with some girls that had some questionable promiscuity issues. And again, I like better just not be able to get pregnant by being on birth control, and having my cycle was all fucking over the place. So at least birth control. So I was like 13 or 14 when I got put on birth control. And was regulated that way. And anytime that I wasn't on birth control, my period was just all over the place. And I was on birth control for 5 years solid. And then I took antibiotics when I was pregnant, I took antibiotics on birth control, which apparently negates it, which I didn't know. And so I found out 12 years ago that I was pregnant for the first time, and I was 19 years old, and I was in massage therapy school, and I was like, what the fuck? I'm gonna be a mom? No, this is no. And I went through massage therapy school, and because I was getting daily massages and I was getting energy work and was learning about the human body, all of a sudden I found myself past the point where they were worried that my hips wouldn't expand. And they're like, so you're really actually going to have this baby? Like, you're not, like, all the things that we thought that were going on with your body aren't, and you're gonna have a baby. And I'm like, I'm gonna be 20, like barely 20 years old. I still live with my parents. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I gave birth for the first time in a hospital with an epidural. Luckily, like, thank the Lord Almighty that I was able to manifest a amazing doula who had just completed her midwifery like course and was waiting for her certificate and her license. And so I didn't actually have like the whole cesarean section, but I went through the entire like the process of the conveyor belt system of being in the hospital giving birth. And for me, like a gazelle in the desert. Oh, thank you. Thank you. I received that, Alex. Make me blush. So I knew exactly what that process was like. And then I didn't know. I had a breast reduction when I was 17. I didn't think that I'd be able to breastfeed. My oldest was born literally the day that the stock market crashed in 2008. I was living with my parents. Like, the beginning of my motherhood was like crash course through everything that you just expect. Like, what all of the Hollywood, all of the everything, like that was my first baby. And I think that that's a lot of people's first baby, right? Like, you're totally unconscious of what it's actually like to be a parent. And then depending on your own childhood, those traumas and your own belief systems and your own, like, your birthing experience. I coach a lot of moms who have had really traumatic experiences and when they were in the birthing process, and that's what's like starting to hold them back. They felt disempowered. They felt like their power, like these crazy, amazing women who are holding themselves back, and it's related to the way that they were treated when they were birthing. And then I had all my own shit going on. Again, I was a kid having a baby, and I was just living super unconsciously. And I had my parents to help me, and they pretty much raised my oldest kid until I was in 2013, when I had my total breakdown, when I was drinking all the time, when I was pretty much trying to have an affair to get my husband to leave me so that I had a justification to kill myself, because I absolutely hated my life. I had fibromyalgia, degenerative arthritis, weighed like 200 pounds, just completely and totally hated everything. Like, why God me? I was a complete and total victim in my life. And I was 25 years old with a body of a 70-year-old ready to just be done. Yay, Chase, you're here. And that's when I got a therapist. Okay. So therapy is this beautiful, beautiful place where all of a sudden, all of your unconscious patterns kind of start getting brought up. And you move through this journey from unconscious to conscious, and you start to understand how the brain works. And depending on how geeky you get about it, like me, I totally nerded out on it and am now like a super, super geek when it comes to neuroscience and childhood development and linguistics and emotional responses and somato-emotional release inside the body and how the body talk. Like I could go on for hours and hours and hours on every single one of these topics, which is why I have a weekly show so that I can share the knowledge with you guys in bite-sized chunks, right? And so my therapist helped me realize my story of origin, my story of being a child, the reason why I acted this way, the reason why I had chosen the type of husband that I had, the reason why I had all these things. But she gave it to me in a very just a very 3D psychological therapy-based mindset. Now, I never needed to take medications, but I also would have refused them because when I took fibromyalgia, when I had fibromyalgia and I was taking medications for the pain and to sleep, I actually went a little crazy. And if it wasn't for cannabis, I wouldn't have even gotten to the point where I was able to think about maybe getting a therapist. So like when I say that my story started, like it's been an interwoven, like my story started the second that I was disconnected from my mother in the womb, right? And it comes down to, what does that story really mean for you? So as you begin to move from unconscious living, when you start to realize that you are actually creating your life based on past experiences and past traumas and past emotions and past lessons that you've learned, you then are able to start making new choices. Like, actually, I'm not that scared little 7-year-old anymore. I can do other things. And you start to just, you start to pick and you start to choose how your life's going to be. So for me, that big choice came when I was in 2014, when I got pregnant for the second time. And I wanted to do a midwife school. I had become a doula during this process. And I really just loved the idea of birthing on my own. Not on my own, but like without medication, because that had been my original plan, but that didn't happen with my oldest. And so going to the hospital where I'd given birth to my oldest would give me a panic attack. So around 20 weeks, I actually changed my birth plan from birthing with a midwife inside the hospital to doing a home birth. And we found out that our insurance would pretty much pay for it because of how the laws were written for our HELOC, not our HELOC, that's for the house. Oh my God. Our HSA or FSA, whatever, Ryan's money from fucking medical, whatever the hell it's called. Oh, okay. So I started reading everything that I could on how to birth because I was going to do this without drugs. There wasn't going to be a choice. Like I was doing this no matter what, because I had met people who had done it now. Like I'm a Leo, so I got very competitive. Like that person done it and that person's done it. Holy shit, this person's done it. I watched The Business of Being Born. By this point, I was very political. Have been a registered libertarian since 2012 and have spoken out a lot against the insurance companies and the system in general, and how the corruption within the sick care system, as I call it, because it has no fucking focus on healthcare at all. Anyway, and The Business of Being Born is a great show. It's pretty old at this point, but it's really awesome. I started reading everything by Ina May Gaskin, and I just started really trusting my body. Like, until 1901, women weren't doing this. It's a status symbol to be able to give birth in the hospital. And I just jumped in and dove in like I do with everything and completely ripped apart any belief system that I had around birthing and breastfeeding and cloth diapering. And I became this uber crunchy mom, like making his food and co-sleeping and like all these things. And at his birth, it was very similar to his brother's in the fact that it was a long birth. Water broke, waited around for over 24 hours. But then the actual active labor for Alex was super fast. It was like 30 minutes and he was born. And then I had this baby who was super needy because I had created such an intense, energetic bond with him that after he was born, he was just this, like, my world just started to break down. Like, oh my God, how can I do this? Like, this is so hard. You are so much different than your brother, and I'm all alone. Because then at this point, we had bought my parents' house when Alex was around 1. They moved out when he was about 18 months old. And then right around that same time, after having this super colicky baby that was like underneath me all the time, constantly, like literally attached to me in the backpack, couldn't sleep unless you were underneath him. Like, I'm telling you, so energetically attached to me. And I didn't understand the idea of an energetic umbilical cord really at this point. I kind of got it, like figured, oh, it's because we had to build this trust to be able to go through the birth process. But I still gave the whole credit for that to my team. I had my doula, I had my midwife, I had Ryan, I had the midwife assistant, I had the pool, I was taking these tinctures. Like, I had all of this other assistance as far as I was concerned to birth him at home. And I nursed him and it was great. And then I found out that I was pregnant with Xena when Alex was about 19 months old. And she was a total surprise. Like, what in the fuck? I'm pregnant again? No, I can't. I can't do this. And I experienced pregnancy depression. So I had this baby that was super needy, and now I was pregnant. And everything about her pregnancy was different. Like, I didn't get sick. I pretty much knew I was having a girl by the time she was born. I kept having this vision that I was going to give birth unassisted, that I was going to do it without anyone there yet. And that's exactly what happened. My daughter was born. I called the midwife, I don't know, probably around midnight. I kept having to like go to and from the bathroom. And then around 3 a.m., 3:30, I called the midwife, like, I'm pretty sure I'm in fucking labor actually. And by like at 4:44 a.m., she was born, and I birthed her on my own with my husband pushing on my back and my photographer there taking the picture. So there was no one that did it. Like, that was me 100%. And my whole life snapped into focus. Like, this is what women do. What I did before when I was at home, yes, it was amazing. And yes, it was of my own bodily volition, but I had so much support and people yelling in my ear. And I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I needed all this support from this physical layer of people. But that day I had just my husband pushing on my back as hard as he could because I was screaming at him to do it. And my photographer was there taking pictures to witness it. And I birthed her in my bathroom. I pulled her up. Her umbilical cord snapped because of the like velocity that she came out of me. And the midwife got there 15 minutes later. And I just remember being in like bliss. I went to the grocery store 7 days afterwards. Like, her recovery was amazing. Like, it was just the most amazing, powerful, like, holy shit, why aren't women birthing all the time this way? Because between Alex and Xena, I had gone through Instagram. I was on Instagram wars all the time. I was trying to get people to understand that birth your way and birth without fear and home birth is real birth and breastfeeding. And I was like a huge advocate for birthing and breastfeeding and mother's rights and all of that stuff. January Harshey with Birth Without Fear is one of my best fucking friends and mentors as far as I'm concerned. We've only hung out a couple of times, and yet every time we hang out, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're my best friend. I just love everything about you. And we go eat vegan tacos together. And so I became this big, again, so more advocacy. Between Leo and Alex, I was this advocate for cannabis and being a canna mommy and being able to use this natural medicine so that I could actually be an active participant in my kid's life and not be on the couch drugged by all the medications that I was supposed to take. But I was still really depressed, and I was still just woe is me, woe is me. And then I was able to start getting out of that with Alex and his birth and going to therapy. I was going to therapy for myself. I was going with my husband. I was like really trying to figure out, how could I be the best mom that I could be? How could I be a better person? How can I start having dreams and goals and visions that are bigger? Like, one day my kids are going to grow up, and then what? Then what's going to happen? And then Xena's born. And at the exact same time, one of my clients is going through a total freaking breakdown of his life. All this abandonment issues, all these things are happening. And I'm massaging him like 3 times a week. And I'm able to be channeling his like messages from him, like, okay, this is a weird question. I know that I'm working in your spleen, but like, can you tell me about what's going on with your mom? And he would just like let it all out. And so I started taking notes on this client, and then I started taking notes on other clients. And then I started realizing in my own sessions, that's what I was doing when I was getting worked on. And I started to create this my whole course. You guys can literally go find it on Facebook for free. It's called Back to Basics Boot Camp. It's like a 10-day challenge that I did last August. It's all about this, like, okay, now that you're in consciousness, now that you understand that your past is being controlled by 7-year-old self you, and you actually have the ability to change all of that. What can you actually do now that you're playing with it? What can you, like, ooh, let me test this theory. And you start to, this is where you're going to start all of a sudden, like self-help books start coming around, right? So like therapists don't tend to suggest self-help books, right? Because they're trying to get around the trauma and really like dig up and unearth everything that's going on. Self-help books and the personal development world, I think of as like farmers taking like a blowtorch to the field when they know that all the roots are rotted, and yeah, they've like dug it all up, but they still have to burn the roots down because that's the only way to get rid of all the rot. That's the way that I differentiate like therapists and life coaches, essentially, is that the therapists are the ones helping you like with your fucking backhoe, like, oh, they have an amazing position. And life coaches are like, okay, cool. So I see your field, dug it all up, fucking awesome, sweet. There's still a lot of rot in here. I think the best thing we do is just blow torch the damn thing, and let's move on. Now, some are gonna, I'm a blowtorch type of life coach. There's other people that have gentler ways. I'm gonna take a blowtorch to that shit. Just burn the field, build a new one. Dragon here. So then Xena is born, and something inside of me shifts, and I can't like yell anymore because I've been a yeller. I hadn't wanted to be a spanker or anything like that, so I thought that the best thing to do was, yes, thanks, Roxanne. I love it when my analogies land. The ability for you to shoot, I lost my train of thought. I didn't want to yell anymore. So all of a sudden, these books, what started coming into my life? All of a sudden, these books called No Drama Discipline and The Whole Brain Child and Get Your Shit Together and You Are a Badass and Braving the Wilderness, like all of these amazing books about child development and child psychology. And because I had nerded out on it from the perspective of an adult looking back on their childhood, because that's what I was doing and what my clients were doing. But now all of a sudden I was concerned about raising my kids. What if I could just teach them this shit now? What if they don't have to go through therapy? And that was honestly my biggest drive, was wanting to learn how to cut out this fucking weird rite of passage that we have of going to a therapist. Anybody else think that's weird? That it's like, oh, you have a therapist? Cool, me too. Like they have a great position, like I said, a very powerful job. But the fact that we like, it's like you get your driver's license, you can drink, and then you get a therapist. Anyway, so been there, done that, right? So then all of a sudden this weird thing happened. I got randomly added to like a 5-day gratitude challenge on Facebook. I didn't even know people ran challenges. Didn't really get this whole online business coach thing or life coach thing. Didn't know about the spiritual community online. Like Facebook was just a way that I bitched online and complained about my life. To all the people that already knew that my life was pretty shitty. Again, I was immensely victimized by the lot in my life instead of realizing that I was creating every single part of it as a like a stepping stone to where I am now. So I can tell you this story with no emotional attachment to it and just say, this is where I was, trust and believe I understand where you were because I've fucking been there and here I am now. So I added to this gratitude challenge, and day one she does this meditation and I like want to puke. I'm like, oh, I do not recognize this feeling of gratitude in my body. What the fuck is this? And at one point she says, go to this place inside of you that is where you feel gratitude. And I was snapped back to Zena's birth. I was snapped back into that moment of pure power, pure bliss, pure just like abundance, like holy shit, I am all that is woman. I just fucking birthed this baby all by my goddamn self. You didn't do it. You didn't do it. I did this all on my own. And she's healthy and she's beautiful and holy shit, I'm amazing. But I also knew we weren't going to have any more kids because my husband and I had agreed 3 strikes you're out. I got my girl. He got snipped. We were done. So how do I feel like I have the capacity to feel like that? How do I do that without having to have more babies? So then I spend and then I do my first ever full moon, my first ever new moon ritual, right? So now all of a sudden, I'm not unconscious at all. I am very, very consciously mothering, super conscious parenting. I'm doing all of those things. And then Zena's like not even 3 months old, right around 3 months old. And I do my first ever new moon wishing ritual. It was new moon in Libra, not knowing that my moon is in Libra at this point because I didn't understand any astrology or how it was pertinent to my life at all. I knew I was a Leo, but that was it. And I do this ritual and I ask for more patience, more ability to let go of the things that like I really like, pretty much a serenity prayer. Like, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Like, let me be able to budget, to be able to let go of like the perfection, to have a joyful time in my home, just do all these things. And within 24 hours, the literal roof collapsed on my house. The house that we bought from my parents. So again, my home of origin collapses, literally, on top of my head, like right where I am every day, it just like splits and there's all this water damage and all of a sudden we have to pay $34,000 to get a new roof. It's fucking cool. But what do you know that I'm thinking? I do a new moon ritual and my roof collapses. I'm like, okay, moon, the fuck do you want? I hear you, bitch. I hear you. How can I help you? Like, those signs from the universe that you literally just can't ignore. And if you do ignore them, you're too, like, if you start to ignore them, like, shit's even worse gonna break. So, like, you might as well just listen. So I start doing my Akashic records. I start aligning all these things. I start just like completely and totally like immersing myself in the occult. And I want to get into whole life alignment. I learn about business coaching and I want to be a life coach. And I'm still going for this whole, you have to fill your cup. So my whole thing has always been take care of yourself today so you can take care of the others in the world tomorrow, because that's what I had to do. I had to take care of my fibromyalgia. I had to take care of my childhood stories. I had to take care of my drinking problem and my depression and suicidal thoughts. I had to take care of my attachment to my parents and them moving out. I had to move past my attachment to my body and what it was actually capable of doing. I kept taking care of myself, and every level I was getting more and more abundance. I was getting further and further out of the fog of this belief system that I was only destined. Remember, I was raised in Utah, where we are destined to just be mothers and nothing else. It's your duty to just like be a mom and exist, and you're always a mom. Even when you're a grandma, you're just constantly like, your life doesn't matter, what you're doing doesn't matter, How you can serve is the only thing that's important. You don't get to receive anything unless you're being given it by the man. You're so constricted by the man that you actually are kinkily turned on by it, but you're not actually allowed to have any kinky, crazy sex. It's called missionary for a reason. Like, do the job, but don't have any pleasure. There's no pleasure. Like, Utah Mormons are like fucking Puritans. Okay, like let me make this clear. And I know that Christina know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, they are like fucking Puritans. No joy, no happiness. Like, we have this place called Happy Valley. It's where everyone takes antidepressants. So it's not really Happy Valley, it's Antidepressant Valley. We have one of the highest levels of opioid overdoses and accidental drug overdoses from opioids and painkillers and antidepressants and anti-anxiety pills and all that stuff. Like, it's fucking insane. So they're all legal drugs until you're no longer, until your doctor cuts you off, and then all of a sudden you become a heroin addict. And that's Utah. That's literally, I just explained like what we have to fucking deal with, which is why I was such a huge cannabis activist and helped get the Medical Marijuana Act passed. Anyway, but every time I had to break down, right? Every time I had to say, I can see something different. And I'm scared and I'm wobbling and I don't know really how I'm going to do this, but I have to break through this and I have to sit here and really figure out how can I be a better person and grow, and then slowly start taking the steps to be that next level person, and then realize it's bigger than me and find a purpose to serve and find something else, and then fearlessly just be like, I am a canna mommy, I am a this, I am a that. And then as soon as I would step in fully into that role, what would happen? All of a sudden I'd be able to believe and see other things, and the whole thing kept starting over and over and over. That's why super conscious living is a constant process. There is no end. You're just always constantly going back through, I believe and can see more for my future. And you become your own psychic, and you tap into these psychic resources that are as abundant as the waterfall coming from the top of the mountain that I found by going just a little bit further. Go to my Facebook page, go look at the video I posted yesterday about the waterfall. All I had to do was go a quarter of a mile higher up on the mountain, and I found this gorgeous waterfall that I would have never seen if I would have stayed in my nice little safe clearing that I'd been going to for the last week. I try to explain to people outside of Utah, but they don't get it. Yeah, you just can't. You can't get it. And I'm not even, again, I wasn't even raised in the church. So people who have been raised in the LDS church inside of Utah, they got a whole nother level. And it's not that I really don't have a problem with the Mormon religion. It's this weird, this control. It's so fear-based. That's what I have with all organized religions, is the fear instead of the love. Like their books and their sermons are based in love, but their actual acting principles and the rules and their guidelines are all based on fear. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. That waterfall was amazing, right? It is amazing. So here I am in 2018, and I am feeling good, because all of a sudden I've got a purpose. I'm going to help more moms figure out how to take care of themselves today so that they can take care of the world and their kids and themselves and everything. And I'm moving towards this big and bright future. And then I meet this woman named Lorna Johnson, and she fucking blows my mind apart. She starts talking about how she had made $1 million in 10 months, how she had been totally depressed and suicidal and bipolar and was able to snap out of it and create all this wealth for herself. Starts talking about the dark and how everything is incubated in the dark, and the Inanna story and going down into the depths and having everything ripped off of you. So all of a sudden I'm no longer hearing about this hero's journey that we're constantly hearing up here in the higher world of therapy. Like, I heard about Joseph Campbell when I was in therapy, like years before I'd ever heard of the hero's journey. It was still like that whole thought of, you leave the tribe, it's fucking Luke Skywalker story, right? Here this woman is talking about something totally different, this Inanna story, having everything stripped away from you, giving up everything, hanging on a meat hook, dying. All of a sudden this Christ story starts coming out where I'm like, the fuck hangs on a meat hook for 3 days and disintegrates and nothing, and then all of a sudden when she's finally still, is lowered down and springs back and is completely merged as heaven and earth in the underworld. Very much like the Persephone story, where she goes in the underworld, and it's only once she takes the underworld into her that she is merged with it. It's all the same story. It's the heroine's journey into that unconscious. So while therapy helps us to really like kind of see that we have unconscious thoughts, the heroine's journey is where all of a sudden we're like, okay, I'm going to let all the shadows out. Like, I'm going to just open the fucking blinds, let the monsters out. Let's look at every single one of you up close and personal. And it was during that time that I started doing naked mirror mantras. It was during that time that I went from a size 14 US to a size 8 US in 12 weeks by doing naked mirror mantras and masturbation. It was during that time that I started having extreme joy and pleasure in just my journey that I was on. And I was still not making a lot of very good money in my business at all. In fact, I was spending a fuck ton of money. And my marriage was going to hell because of it. But I couldn't stop. I felt so selfish and so guilty and all these other things, and yet something was open. And it was like you ever open a cage for like a bird or a wild animal that's always been in captivity or seen them doing it? Opening the cage is only a part of it. Like, they still have to learn how to trust to, like, holy shit, my cage is open. And that's when you're like sitting in the goo and you're just like, okay, maybe I'll just like stick my head out of the cage. Oh shit, never mind. And that can take some time. It can take some time to really start to trust, like, oh wait, I have these wings. What do they do? How do I use them? How do I fly? And then, I don't know, sometime last year, the dragons came in. I literally skydove, went skydiving on my birthday last year. Snapped into this super, like, this awareness that it really is so much bigger than me. When I was free falling, trusting my life in this other person's hands, had gotten my first, I launched my business as a 5-figure business. I was able to be helping and serving in such a beautiful way, had discovered my vocal activations, had discovered the dragon activations, had discovered my own unique process of how I moved through my life, how every time a new shadow came up, I was able to just take it through its own process of believing and seeing, and wobbles and scatters and breakdown and sitting in the go and doing the next right thing. And it's bigger than me. And now I'm fearlessly authentic, and who that version of me is, holy shit, I'm doing it again. And I just kept doing it every single day, over and over and over and over again. Until now it's my habit. Now I'm climbing mountains by myself. Now I'm every week hitting higher and higher income goals, helping more and more people, serving in bigger and bigger ways. Getting connected to those who are in power positions, who are here to really usher in the new earth in a huge, huge way, that maybe those people still living unconsciously, like where I was when I was 19 and 20 and 24 and 25 and even 28. They're still so trapped in fear. But once you're finally fully released from fear, and all you can do is love everyone and everything, and know who they are, and know that they are a lesson, and know that they are just a fragment of you, and just a fractal reflection of parts of you that you're not able to accept. And then you start loving them more, which means that you're loving yourself more. You start to project this super consciousness, and you really actually have to almost censor your thoughts, because you're so fucking powerful that you think something and it happens. It's just that how it happens isn't always like super clean and pretty. Like me getting my neighbor's dogs called the cops on the other day when I thought it in my backyard, because the dog barks all the time when we're in the backyard. And 2 days later, I came out to meditate underneath the moon after 10 o'clock. The dog starts barking. The neighbor up there calls the cops on this neighbor. Oops. Now you might think, oh, that's really narcissistic of you to think that was you. But when you're living in that level of power and authority, you know when it was you and when it wasn't. Especially because that's a lesson I've been having to learn. So it was one of the like, you thought something negative and it happened. Time to be more positive. And so now I'm just constantly using my senses. I walk into a room, and instead of assuming what's going on and yelling at my kids and freaking out, I just sit there and I wait to respond. I sit there and I use my eyes, my ears, my smell. I sense what's happening. I use my intuition. And I'm no longer walking around my life unconscious of the fact that I've been programmed by the patriarchy and by society and by all of these ideas that I was taught that kept me safe when I was a little kid. Our ego is based on the culmination of our experiences up to 7 years old. So if you haven't gone to therapy, if you haven't gone through your childhood regression, if you haven't dealt with your childhood trauma, and then you're wondering why your life is the way that it is, start there. And if you have dealt with that and you're wondering why the life is the way it is, start wondering what beliefs around those times in your life you're still believing. If you still believe that you have to be provided for by someone else, then that's where you need to start looking. That's a huge one, especially for little girls, especially if you were daddy's little girl. And maybe you found a husband who's now your daddy, if you know what I mean. And it happens. And it's fine because it's more lessons. You're constantly creating your own lessons. And it's once you recognize that and you're no longer a victim to your life, but you're like, oh, wow, I made this situation so I could learn something. Fucking cool. Because then I can learn something. And what I learn, I can then serve other people by teaching it. And for so many of us, teaching it, it's not doing what I'm doing. It's not coming on every week and doing a huge speech and giving an hour of my time every day just because I love being on camera. But it's teaching it to your children so that we can really fully and completely obliterate this rite of passage of going to therapy. Their childhoods don't have to be traumatic. We're already teaching them consciously and super consciously, and they can grow and be full, complete, wholly in alignment with their divine will. Their divine will. Kids already are fearless. Kids are already authentic. Kids are already super powerfully like will driven. They're already so curious. It's us. We are the ones that instill fear into them. We are the ones that beat in the scarcity and lack and fear and oppression of generations prior to us that don't even, they're so fucking archaic. They wouldn't even know what to do about the fact that I'm talking all over the world to people in Australia and England and Germany and Japan and Brazil and all over the whole fucking world, wherever you guys are. And yet we're still constantly sparing the rod to spoil the child, bullshit, anger-based, fear-based, well, this is how it happened to me, so it has to happen to you, continuing the fucking cycle of bullshit instead of being the bigger person and saying, I love myself so much that I am going to stop this. Right fucking now, this ends with me. I am going to do whatever it takes, no matter what, to end the cycle of shame and anger and guilt and fear. And I don't give a fuck if I look selfish. And I don't give a fuck if it looks like I'm ruining everybody's life. And I don't give a fuck if I am completely and totally non-traditional in every way that you can see. Because I know that what has got us here as a society is not going to get us to where we want to be in a world of peace and love and unity and respect. And yet we are still constantly treating our children that way. We are punishing instead of teaching. Right now, domestic violence is through the fucking roof. Because parents are having to be with their kids all the time. They don't have the school system to save them. And they don't know how to do it. And it's because they don't know how to parent themselves. They don't know how to say, you know what? I believe that there is a better way to parent my kids. I believe there is a better way to be. And I might be scattered and I might wobble and I might fall and I might get my ass kicked learning some lessons, but I know that there's a better way that I can be. There has to be. I'm going to find examples of it out in the world, because if someone else is doing it, then I can do it too. If they can do it, why not me? Instead of, why me? What was me? No, why not me? Thank you, Chase. So that's it. That was my whole journey from where I am to, again, exactly what Chase says. Like, I am running for president of the United States in 2024. I will be 35 years old. I will be a millennial and I will be the first woman president, because I am willing to do whatever it takes, no matter what, to stay in the highest timeline possible, which is me becoming a world leader of this new earth, helping the masses, the billions of people on this planet, to move from this unconscious prison of illusion of suffering into consciously creating their lives, to super consciously commanding the energy and the matter around them to build heaven on earth. So if I can give you anything for Mother's Day, it's that vision. Let me give you a piece of my vision so that you can be there every single day, even if it's only in your dreams, because a dream is really a wish that your heart makes. And if you can learn to open your heart to love and to receive the love and to receive the support from someone who knows that you are worthy of everything that you could ever imagine and more, then you can take the little step that you need to do. You can learn how to pick the lock of your cage. You can learn how to push the cage door open. You can learn how to look around, and then you can finally learn how to fly away and go build your nest in some fucking tall ass oak tree or something. So, I love you. Hope you have a beautiful Mother's Day. Enjoy your whatever it is you're doing today to celebrate whatever you did yesterday. I know some of you guys are in the next day already because time. And I love you. I love you. Go make today amazing for you, not because you expect it from your husband or your kids, but because you are making every single day blissful and prosperous for you, because you're just trusting yourself and your own senses and your own intuition to guide you to your own highest potential. Okay? I love you.